What's up, world? We're back. More Outwitting the Devil. Damn, Napoleon did a wonder with this one. But I'm gonna get right into it, because I know 40 minutes ain't fun really listening to if you're not totally into it. So you wouldn't think these things take this long. It's like 20, 25 pages just reading it. But yeah, adds up quick. So here we go. The confession continues. Napoleon starts out. If this confession of yours stopped right here, your statement would be sound. But fortunately for millions of your victims who will gain their release because of your confession, this interview will continue until you have supplied me with the weapon by which you will eventually be restrained from domination of people through their fears and superstitions. Remember, Your Majesty, your confession has just begun. After I wring from you a description of the methods by which you control people, I will force you to also give the formula by which your control can be broken at will. It is true, I shall not remain here long enough to defeat you, but the published word I leave behind will be deathless, because it will consist of truth. You fear the opposition of no individual, because you know it will be short, but you do fear truth. You fear truth and nothing else, for the reason it is slowly but definitely giving human beings freedom from all manner of fear. Without the weapon of fear, you would be helpless and entirely unable to control any human being. Is that true or false? I have no alternative but to admit that what you say is true. Okay, now that we understand each other, let us go ahead with your confession. But before we continue, I may as well take a time out to do a little boasting on my own account. Now that you've had your fling at it, I will confine myself to one question, the answer to which will give me all the satisfaction I want. Is it not true that you control only the minds of those who have allowed the drifting habit to be fixed upon them? Yes, that is true. I've already admitted this truth in a dozen or more ways. Why do you tantalize me by repeating this question? There's power in repetition. I'm forcing you to repeat the highlights of your confession in as many different ways as possible so your victims may check this interview and determine its soundness by their own experiences with you. That is one of my little tricks. Do you approve of my method? You couldn't be setting a trap for me for the purpose of doing some more boasting, could you? I'm asking the questions and you're doing the answering. Go ahead now and confess why you were powerless to stop me from forcing this confession on you. I want your confession for aid and comfort to victims of yours whom I intend to release from your control the moment they read your confession. The devil says, I am powerless to influence you or control you because you have found the secret approach to my kingdom. You know that I exist only in the minds of people who have fears. You know that I control only the drifters who neglect to use their own minds. You know that my hell is here on earth and not in the world that comes after death. And you know also that drifters supply all the fire I use in my hell. You know that I am a principle or form of energy, which expresses the negative side of matter and energy. And I am not a person with a forked tongue and a spiked tail. You have become my master because you have mastered all of your fears. Ooh, that's tough. You have become my master because you have mastered all your fears. And lastly, you know that you can release all of my earthbound victims whom you contact. And this definite knowledge is the blow with which you will deal me the greatest damage. I cannot control you because you have discovered your own mind and you have taken charge of it. There now, Mr. Earthbound, that confession should feed your vanity to the bursting point. Napoleon says, all right, that last dart was unnecessary. Knowledge of the sort I have used to master you does not contaminate itself with vulgar indulgence and vanity. Truth is the one and the only thing in the world that can stand ridicule. Now let us continue with your confession. What is wrong with the principle of flattery? You use it, don't you? Do I use it? Man alive, flattery is one of my most useful weapons. With this deadly instrument, I slay the big ones and the little ones. Your admission interests me. Go ahead now and tell me how you make use of flattery. I make use of it in so many ways, it's difficult to know where to begin. But I warn you, before I answer in detail, that publishing my answers will bring down an avalanche of ridicule on your head for bringing up this question. I'll take the responsibility. Proceed. Well, I may as well admit here that you have stumbled upon the major secret of how I convert people to the habit of drifting. Huh, that's a startling admission. Go ahead with your confession and stick strictly to this subject of flattery. No more side remarks or no more facetiousness for the present. Tell me all about your use of flattery in gaining control over people. Okay. Flattery is a bait of incomparable value to all who wish to gain control over others. It has powerful pulling qualities because it operates through two of the most common human weaknesses: vanity and egotism. Sorry about that. There's a certain amount of vanity and egotism in everyone. In some people, these qualities are so pronounced they literally serve as a rope by which one may be bound. The best of all ropes is flattery. Flattery is the chief bait through which men seduce women. Sometimes, in fact, frequently, women use the same bait to gain control of men, especially men who could not be mastered through sex appeal. I teach its use to both men and women. Flattery is the chief bait with which my agents weave their way into the confidence of people from whom they procure information needed to carry on warfare. Ooh, carry on warfare. Ooh. Wherever anyone stops to feed his vanity, their vanity, on flattery, I move in and begin to build another drifter. Non-drifters are not easily flattered. I inspire people to use flattery in every human relationship where its use is possible, because those who are influenced by it become easy victims of the drifting habit. Okay, can you control anyone who's amenable to flattery? Very easily. As I've already told you, flattery is of major importance in alluring people to the habit of drifting. At what age are people most susceptible to flattery? Age has nothing to do with it. People respond to it in one way or another, from the time they become conscious of their own existence until the time they die. Through what motive can women most easily be flattered? This is important, ladies. Their vanity. Tell a woman she's pretty or that she wears her clothes well. Okay. What motive is the most effective in harpooning men? Egotism with a capital E. Tell a man he has a strong Herculean body, or that he is a great business tycoon, and he will purr like a cat and smile like a possum. After that, you know what happens. Are all men like that? Oh no. 2 out of every 100 have their egotism so thoroughly under control that even an expert flatterer couldn't get under their skins with a double-edged butcher knife. How does a cunning woman apply her art of flattery in attracting men? Great heavens, man! Do I have to draw a picture of her method for you? Have you no imagination? Oh yes, I have imagination enough, your majesty, but I'm thinking of the poor dupes of the world who need to understand the exact techniques with which they may be flattered into the habit of drifting. So go on and tell us how a woman can harpoon rich and presumably smart men. This is a devilish trick to play on women, but since you demand the information, I'm helpless to withhold it. Women influence men through a technique consisting first of ability to inject soft, cooing baby tones into their voices, and second, by closing their eyes to a half-closed position, which registers hypnotism in connection with the flattery of men. Interesting, huh? Is that all there is to the business of flattery? No, that's only the technique. Then comes the motive a woman uses as lure. The type of woman you perhaps have in mind never sells a man herself or anything she can give him. Instead, she sells him his own egotism. Is that all that women use when they wish to flatter men? That's the most effective thing they use. It works when sex appeal fails. When sex appeal fails. So, I am to believe that big, strong, smart men can be wound up and manipulated through flattery, just as if they were so much as putty. Is that possible? Is it possible? It's happening every minute of the day. Moreover, unless they're non-drifters, the bigger they come, the harder they fall. Okay. Tell me some of your other tricks in which you cause people to drift in life. Well, one of my most effective devices is failure. We've already heard this. The majority of people begin to drift as soon as they meet with opposition. And not 1 out of 10,000 will keep on trying after failing 2 or 3 times. Not 1 out of 10,000. Wow. I hope you're stronger than that. Whoever's watching this. You are stronger than that. I know I'm not giving up. So, is it your business to induce people to fail whenever you can? Yeah, you have it right. Failure breaks down one's morale. It destroys their self-confidence. It subdues enthusiasm. It dulls imagination and drives away definiteness of purpose. That's our big thing. Definiteness of purpose. Without these qualities, no one can permanently succeed in any undertaking. The world has produced thousands of inventors with the ability superior to that of the late Thomas Edison. But these men have never been heard of, while the name of Edison will go marching on, because Edison converted failure into a stepping stone to achievement, while the others used it as an alibi for not producing results. Is the capacity to surmount failure without being discouraged one of Henry Ford's chief assets? Yes. And this same quality is the chief asset of every man who attains outstanding success in any calling. Remember too, guys, names like Edison and Ford. This book was written in 1938. These were some of the major players from right before that time. So just think of more contemporary people of these days and picture the same thing. Whew. I've had that itchy throat lately. Damn, it's annoying. All right, continuing. That statement covers lots of territory, Your Majesty. Do you not wish to modify it or tone it down a bit for the sake of accuracy? No modification is necessary because the claim is none too broad. Search accurately into the lives of men and women who achieve enduring success, and you will find, without exception, that their success has been in the exact proportion to the extent that they surmounted failure. The life of every successful person loudly acclaims that which every true philosopher knows. Every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent success. But the seed will not germinate and grow under the influence of a drifter. It springs to life only when it's in the hands of someone who recognizes that most failures are only temporary defeat and who never, under any circumstances, accept defeat as an excuse for drifting. Okay, if I understand you correctly, you claim there's a virtue in failure? That doesn't seem reasonable. Why do you try to induce people to fail if there's a virtue in failure? There's no inconsistency in my claims. The appearance of inconsistency is due to your lack of understanding. Failure is a virtue only when it does not lead one to quitting. I induce as many people as I can to fail as often as I can, because not 1 out of 10,000 will continue after failing 2 or 3 times. I'm not concerned about the few converts. I'm not concerned about the few who convert failure into stepping stones because they belong to my opposition anyway. They are the non-drifters. Therefore, they're beyond my reach. Okay, your explanation clears up the matter. Now go ahead and tell me some of your other tricks with which you allure people into drifting. One of my most effective tricks is known to you as propaganda. Boy, that's huge in today's world. Propaganda. Let's learn about it here. This is big. This is spot on. This is the instrument of greatest value to me in setting people to murdering one another under the guise of war. The cleverness of this trick consists mainly of the subtlety with which I use it. I mix propaganda with the news of the world. I have it taught in public and private schools. I see that it finds its way into the pulpit. I color moving pictures with it. I see that it enters every home where there's a radio. I inject it into billboards, newspapers, and radio advertising. I spread it in every place of business where people work. I use it to fill the divorce courts, and I make it serve to destroy business and industry. It is my chief instrument for starting runs on banks. My propagandists cover the world so thoroughly that I can start epidemics of disease. You guys remember that one? That bring anything to mind? I can turn loose the dogs of war. What's going on? What's been going on last year or so over in that center region of the world we think we know? And I can throw business into a panic at will. Yeah, so, okay. I'll continue. Okay, if you can do all that you claim with propaganda, is it little wonder that we have wars and business depressions? Give me a simple description of what you mean by the term propaganda. Just what is it and how does it work? I wish to know particularly how you cause people to drift through the use of it. Listen. Propaganda is any device, plan, or method by which people can be influenced without knowing they're being influenced, or without knowing the source of the influence. Propaganda is used in business for the purpose of discouraging competition. Employers use it to gain advantage over their employees. The employees retaliate by using it to gain advantage over their employers. In fact, it's used so universally and through such a smooth and beautiful streamlined technique that it looks harmless, even when it is detected. I suppose some of your boys are now engaged in preparing the minds of the American people to drift into some form of dictatorship. Tell me how they work. Yes. Millions of my boys are preparing Americans to become Hitlerized. Wow. It's a name popping up again recently, My best boys are working through politics and labor organization. Again, this was 1938, so it's not exact today, but we intend to take over the country with ballots instead of bullets. Is that what happened 4 or 5 years ago? Americans are so sensitive, they would never stand the shock of seeing their form of government changed with the aid of machine guns and tank cars. Military. So our propaganda boys are serving them a diet they will swallow by stirring up strife between employers and employees and turning the government against business and industry. When propaganda has done its work thoroughly, one of my boys will move in as a dictator, and the 9 old men on your Supreme Court with their silly notions of the Constitution will move out. Everyone will be given a job or fed from the government treasury. When men's bellies are filled, they drift freely with one who does the filling. Hungry men get out from under control. I've often wondered who invented that clever trick which you call propaganda. From what you tell me of its source and its nature, I understand why it's so deadly. Only one as clever as your majesty could have invented such a device with which to dull the reason, dethrone the will, and lure men into drifting. Why do you not use your powerful propaganda to gain control of your victims instead of subduing them through fear and annihilating them through warfare? What is fear of the devil except propaganda? You have not observed my technique very carefully, or you have seen that I am the world's greatest propagandist. I never attain an end by direct, open means, when I can achieve it through subterfuge and subtlety. What do you suppose I am using when I plant negative ideas in the minds of men, people, and gain control of them through what they believe to be their own ideas? What would you call that except the cleverest form of propaganda? Okay, surely you're not going to tell me that you destroy people through their own help without their realizing what you're doing? That's exactly what I wish you to understand. Moreover, I'll show you how the trick is performed. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Exactly how do you convert human beings into propagandists and lure them into self-imprisonment? Give me the story with all its lurid details. This is the most important part of your confession, and I am consumed with eagerness to gain control of your secret. I can hardly blame you for stalling about answering my question, because you know so well that your answer will snatch millions of innocent victims from your control. You also know that your answer will protect other countless millions of yet unborn people from being victimized by you. It's a little wonder why you're hedging about answering. Okay, your deductions are correct. This part of my confession will do me more damage than all the remainder of it. So, stating your headache in a better way, this part of your confession will save more millions of people from your control than all the remainder of it. Listen, all I can say is that you have me, the devil, in a hell of a situation. Now you shall know how the millions of your victims feel. Let's have it. Excuse me. All right. I make my first entry into an individual's mind by bribing them. Okay, what do you use as a bribe? Well, I use many things. All of them pleasant things the individual covets. I use the same sort of bribes that individuals use when they bribe each other. That is, I use for bribes the things that most people want. My best bribes are these: love, the thirst for sex expression, covetousness for money, the obsessive desire to gain something for nothing, aka gambling, vanity in women, egotism in men, the desire to be the master of others, the desire for intoxicants and narcotics, the desire for self-expression through words and deeds, the desire to imitate others, the desire for perpetuation of life after death, the desire to be a hero or a heroine, the desire for physical food. Okay, it's an imposing list of bribes, Your Majesty. Do you use others? Yes, plenty of them, but these are my favorites. Through some combination of them, I can enter the mind of any human being at will, at any age, from birth till death. Ooh. So you mean that these bribes are the keys with which you can silently unlock the door to any mind you choose? That's exactly what I mean. And I can do it too. What happens when you enter the mind of a person who is not yet in the habit of drifting, but belongs to the 98% class as a potential drifter? Well, I go to work immediately to occupy as much of that person's mind as I can master. If the individual's greatest weakness is a desire for money, then I begin to dangle coins in front of him, figuratively speaking. I intensify his desire and induce him to then go after money. Then when he gets near it, I snatch it away from him. It's an old trick of mine. After the trick has been repeated a few times, the poor fellow gives in and quits. Then I take over a little more space in his mind and fill it with the fear of poverty. It's one of my best mind fillers. Ooh. I'll tell you what, guys. He's got me with this one before. You know? You begin to dangle coins in front of him. But when he gets near it, I snatch it away. Oh, you son of a bitch. Funny when you put it in perspective, but oh man, it pisses you off in the moment. All right, onward. Yes, I admit your method is very clever, but what happens if the victim fools you and get his hands on a lot of money? You don't fill his mind with fear of poverty then, do you? No, I don't. I take over the space by filling it with something which serves my purpose just as well. If my victim converts his desire for money into large sums, then I start overfeeding them with the things they can buy with it. For example, I cause him to stuff himself with rich foods. This slows down his thinking capacity, endangers his heart, and starts them on the road to drifting. And then I pester them with intestinal poisoning through the surplus of food. And that also slows down their thinking and gives them a nasty disposition. Okay, what if the victim is not a glutton? What other follies can you induce him to pick up that lead to drifting? Well, if the victim's a male, I can usually snare him through his sex appetite. Overindulgence in sex starts more men to drifting toward failure than all other causes combined. Whoa. That sounds like that's probably the main problem when it comes to things like porn. Overindulgence in sex starts more men to drifting toward failure than all other causes combined. Damn. So food and sex are two of your surefire baits. Is that correct? Yes. With these two lures, I can take over a majority of my victims. And then there's the desire for money. Okay, so right there, food and sex. Yes, that makes sense. I can attest to that in my own life. I have felt that bribery, that leading you to drift, you know. I can attest to this truth. And then there is the desire for money, which we all know that. It's how we, you know, pay for our lives here in this slave realm right now. You know, we always need money for fucking everything. Okay? Alright, continuing. I'm beginning to think that wealth is more dangerous than poverty, if your story is to be believed. Well, that altogether depends on who has the wealth and how it was acquired. What has the manner in which money is acquired to do with its being a blessing or a curse? Everything. If you don't believe me, take a look at those who acquire a large amount of money quickly, without time to get wisdom along with it, and observe how they use it, like lottery winners. Why do you suppose rich men's sons seldom equal the achievements of their fathers? I'll tell you why. It's because they have been deprived of the self-discipline which comes with being forced to work. Look into the records of moving picture stars or athletes who suddenly find themselves in possession of big money and hero worship and praise from the public. Observe how quickly I move in and take them over in many cases, mainly through sex, gambling, food, and liquor. Huh. All sounds pretty common, huh? With these, I catch and control the biggest and the best people as soon as they get their hands on big money. Okay, what about those who acquire money slowly by rendering some form of useful service? Are they easily snared too? Oh, I get them all right, but I generally have to change my bait. Some of them want one thing and others want another. Where my purpose is best served, I see to it that they get what they want most. But I manage to wrap in the package something they don't want. The thing I give them is the definite thing that makes them drifters. Do you see how I work? And very clever work it is. Wow. You lure people on through their natural desires, but then you slip in there your deadly poison into the object of those desires whenever you can. Now you're catching on. You see, I play both ends against the middle, so to speak. From all you say, I infer that you cannot induce a non-drifter to help you gain control of his mind by baiting him with your bribes. Is that correct? That is exactly correct. I can, and I do, interest non-drifters in my bribes, because I use for the purpose of bribery the things that all people naturally desire. But the non-drifter resembles a fish that steals the bait from your hook, but refuses to take the hook. The non-drifter takes from life whatever they want, but they take it on their own terms. The drifter takes whatever they can get. But they take it on my terms. Whew. Stating the matter in another way, the non-drifter borrows money from a legitimate banker, if he wants it, and pays a legitimate rate of interest. The drifter goes to the pawn shop, hawks their watch, and then they pay a suicidal rate of interest for the loan. So I draw from your claim that the conclusion that your hand is somehow mixed up in all of people's troubles and miseries, even though your presence may not be visible. My unwilling workers are often my best workers. You see, my unwilling workers are those whom I cannot control with some combination of bribes. People whom I have to master by fear or some form of misfortune. They do not wish to serve me, but they cannot avoid it because they are essentially bound to me by the habit of drifting. Now I'm beginning to better understand your technique. You bribe your victims through their natural desires and then lead them astray while you induce them to become drifters if they respond to your lure. If they refuse to respond, you plant the seed of fear in their minds or trap them through some form of misfortune and then hog tie them while they're down. Is that your method? That's exactly the way I work. Clever, don't you think? Which do you prefer to serve as your propagandist, the young or the old? The young, of course. They can be influenced by most bribes more easily than people of mature judgment. And moreover, they have longer to remain in my service. Makes sense. Your Majesty has given me a clear description of drifting. Tell me what must be done to ensure against the habit of drifting. I want a complete formula that anyone can use. Ooh, this is the good stuff here, guys. Write these down. And then this chapter ends. Excuse me. All right, here's his answer. Protection against drifting lies within easy reach of every human being who has a normal body and a sound mind. The self-defense can be applied through these simple methods. There's 10 of them. 10 of them. Number 1, do your own thinking on all occasions. The fact that human beings are given complete control over nothing except the power to think their own thoughts is laden with significance. Number 2, decide definitely what you want from life and then create a plan for attaining it and be willing to sacrifice everything else if necessary rather than accept permanent defeat. Number 3, analyze temporary defeat, no matter of what nature or cause, and extract from it the seed of an equivalent advantage. Number 4, be willing to render useful service equivalent to the value of all the material things you demand of life, and render that service first. Number 5, recognize that your brain is a receiving set that can be attuned to receive communications from the universal storehouse of infinite intelligence to help you transmute your desires into their physical equivalent. Number 6, recognize that your greatest asset is time. It's the only thing except the power of thought which you own outright, and the one thing which can be shaped into whatever material things you want. Budget your time so none of it's wasted. Number 7, recognize the truth that fear generally is a filler with which the devil occupies the unused portion of your mind. Fear is generally a filler. It is only a state of mind which you can control by filling the space it occupies with faith. Faith in your ability to make life provide you with whatever you demand of it. Number 8, when you pray, do not beg. Demand what you want and insist upon getting exactly that with no substitutes. Recognize that life is a cruel taskmaster and that either you master it or it masters you. There's no halfway. There's no compromising point. Never accept from life anything you do not want. If that which you do not want is temporarily forced upon you, you can refuse in your own mind to accept it, and it will make way for the thing that you do want. And lastly, number 10, remember that your dominating thoughts attract through a definite law of nature by the shortest and the most convenient route, their physical counterpart. Be careful what your thoughts dwell upon. That list looks imposing. So give me a simple formula combining all the 10 points. If you had to combine all 10 into one, what would it be? Be definite in everything that you do and never leave unfinished thoughts in your mind. Form the habit of reaching definite decisions on all subjects. Can the habit of drifting be broken, or does it become permanent once it's been formed? The habit can be broken if the victim has enough willpower, and providing it's done in time. There is a point beyond which the habit can never be broken. Beyond that point, the victim is mine. He resembles a fly that's been caught in a spider's web. They may struggle, but they cannot get out. Each move they make entangles them more securely. The web in which I entangle my victims permanently is a law of nature not yet isolated by or understood by men of science. And that's where it leads off. Remember those points. I like that last one a lot, especially in this day and age of, law of attraction, law of assumption. I've been seeing a lot of Neville Goddard stuff lately and, things like that. Remember that your dominating thoughts attract through a definite law of nature their physical counterpart. So you gotta get your mind right. Get your mind right. Do your best to be happy, to be grateful, and to give thanks for everything that you want. Everything that you already have, yes, but imagine all the things you want. Imagine yourself doing them. Enjoying those things, going to those places, being with those people, being successful, being wealthy maybe, being free. That's what I want. To be free, to be abundant, to be in love. Not just love like we think of it, but love with life. A state of love, radiating abundance, positivity, joy. Be careful what your thoughts dwell upon, for they will surely become yours. All right, guys, that was that chapter. The next one's a big one too, so I hope you stick in there. Again, I'm sorry these are so long. You wouldn't think 20, 25 pages takes that long, but apparently it takes 38 minutes. Maybe I'll get better at this someday. But anyways. All right. I'll see you again soon, world. Keep outwitting this bastard here. Thanks, Napoleon. Thank you. Peace.